massive solar panels and mining projects to extract lithium. But we also travel to Sao Paulo, where it's more of an indirect. The energy giant State Grid owns the power distribution company that gives electricity to over 10 million Brazilians' homes. So we're seeing a huge infrastructure and investment on behalf of Beijing, both in the private and public level across South America. And we're seeing it not just at federal levels, but as the story and you described, we're seeing a big local push. Governors are traveling to Shanghai. Mayors are cutting deal. Battery plants are being built in suburbs. It's really widespread across the continent now.
And there you go. I hope that you answer this question for me, and I'd love to hear from you. Is the United States a global empire? Should the United States be a global empire? The United States is a country with a split personality disorder, and let me explain what I mean by that. When it comes to the international space, specifically after the fall of the Soviet Union, we've got some people trying to turn the United States into this dream of being a global empire. However, are we properly situated to be a global empire? Now, we talk about how the system of globalization has made these American elites unbelievably wealthy. This push, this dream of becoming a global empire, it's making people rich. And what do I mean by that? Look at the heads of some of these businesses like Amazon, where they can utilize the slave labor of China and get rich off the back of off the backs of slaves. That's what's going on. The pharmaceutical industry, Silicon Valley, they are making money hand over fist. And of course, when you look at places like Illinois, the Midwest, the South, the Rust Belt, they've been completely gutted. The people at the top are making a ton of money. You aren't. So the question becomes, does this make sense? Does this make sense to become a globalist empire? In pursuit of this goal, to become a globalist empire, we have to get involved, and we've gotten involved in many adventurous wars. We've gotten involved in pushing this woke ideology throughout the world. We're trying to do this universalist colonization, in a sense. And it's really funny because the same people that complain about Christian colonization are trying to convert the entire world to accept woke ideology, which I just find super ironic. But then you've got people like Donald Trump who say that the U.S. should be more of a regional power. And when it comes to things that are beyond our sphere of influence, we should seek allies and partners in those areas. Whether it's Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and we should work those coalitions in order to achieve the best outcome for the United States. However, our focus should be on the regional hemisphere. Our focus should be on us. So today, I'm reading this piece out of the Washington Times. Write it down if you'd like and give it a read. I think it's a weird take. But losing Latin America, the U.S. retreats while China's communist rulers advance. And I look at this and I say, well, guys, we need a little bit of both. You can't just say America first, and it means that, and mean America only. That's not what America first means. You should pay attention to what's going on in your backyard. And the way I view it, it's not in America's best policy to have an America only standpoint. That's not what America first means, particularly when it comes to countries that are at our back door. Look at our southern border, for example, down south. Massive surges of immigrants and caravans, drug organizations. We've got cartels. We're seeing now video footage of Chinese nationals coming up through these caravans. My point is, for all the times we get involved in border disputes, like what's happening in Ukraine. This is a border dispute, a territorial dispute. I think Ron DeSantis said that, or coined the term, for what's going on in Ukraine. For all the times that we do that, why aren't we getting involved in things that are directly happening in our backyard? Because You know what? The people in Arizona, Texas, Southern California, they're having to deal with that southern surge every day, the border surge, the massive illegal immigration happening. Then it affects the rest of us, too, here in the state of Illinois. Now the competition for low-wage jobs, low-wage workers, because we've decided to open up the floodgates and have a completely open border. And so when it comes to those countries, the regional powers, I have been very, very critical. I've been very critical of the U.S. foreign policy establishment for allowing Mexico to get involved with BRICS. Here, we are going to let our direct neighbor, that's Mexico, get involved in BRICS. The U.S. we're in a very dangerous position right now. In this pursuit of the global empire, we're losing the status because we're just not good at it. We will never be the global empire because we don't have the power to do that. China's trying to do that right now, and we can't compete with China doing that. We will never be a global empire. So we suck at that. And then also we're losing regional influence because we're stretched way too thin because we've got wars, adventurous wars happening. We're trying to push woke ideology in every little place in the world. But we don't care. We don't care because too many people are making too much money with this push for the global American empire, this globalist empire. And we need to return to the America First perspective. We need to. I do want to shift gears here. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in 309-451-9299. Now, I want to, and hopefully you're watching because I'm going to share this with you. The audio is crazy too. So if you're listening, you're not missing anything. But I want to share this with you. It's on Charlie Kirk's Telegram. This is a transgender man. Well, like a transgender person. He's clearly a man, and he's posing to be a woman. And I don't know about you, but is this a threat? This feels like a threat to me when I listen to this transgender person say that any woman who tries to stop him from entering a woman's bathroom, that person will be making the last mistake she ever makes. Listen to this.
If you back a wild animal into a corner, they're going to become a dangerous animal. So if you want to die on that hill of yours of righteousness and moral majority, then you go right ahead. I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian, bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. Plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun. Learn how to use it efficiently, through and through. Because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community, as I'm going to do myself. Because there are lots of people like me who are not afraid to die.
Whoa.
I love my girlfriends to death, but I would rather die for them to secure their safety, freedom, and future than to live and not have anything done.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, come on now. We heard that. We heard that for what it was. Is that a threat? And to me, this sounds like a threat. And a call to arms. This is very insurrection-y. I don't know. Trantifa. We need to start labeling these people for what it is. It is domestic terrorism. You are getting on social media and you are calling for people to arm themselves and to shoot their fellow Americans. This is insane. 309-451-9299. I wanted to bring that up this morning. It sounds like a threat, no? Which brings me to this story. The Idaho high school teacher has been arrested on the suspicion of raping a 16-year-old boy. His name's Eric Dermont. He's 59 years old, of Boise, and he was booked into this Ada County jail on Monday on charges of rape and sexual battery. This is a scary story, and I've got to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit, just so that way you know what activism, when a teacher is a proclaimed activist, a prominent LGBTQ activist, that in and of itself is probably means that this teacher is likely, I'm not going to say all teachers, right, who are LGBTQ activists. I'm going to say it's likely, and there's a reason why that it's likely. It's likely that that person is a predator, and you need to be on the lookout for that kind of thing. And then also, CDC Rochelle Walensky admitted to Congress that vaccinated individuals can spread the COVID virus. Wow, after like 2-3 years? Come on now, Rochelle. What changed? What happened? Now you're admitting to Congress that these clot shot people, the people who got the clot shot, these individuals can spread the COVID virus? After spreading vaccine disinformation for over 2 years now? Come on, Rochelle. That's next here on The Morning Buzz. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Buzz. How we doing? Let's get to your comments here. Lock them up in men's prison. Yeah. Cuz, hey, Donnie, how are you? That's my cousin, folks. Dude is sick and needs to be slapped. I'm assuming you're talking about the transgender mark, not the transgender, the LGBTQ activist teacher. He's a high school teacher, he was a coach, and he taught like world history, stuff like that. Yeah, dude is really, really sick. And the reason why I pulled this today was because we've got something pretty similar here. Now, I got to do some homework. I don't know for sure, but James Blessant is his name, and he is being charged, and he's going to be arraigned in 8 days. And I'm waiting for him to be arraigned to ask this question, but I might have to ask it earlier because obviously he's staying somewhere right now. James Blessant, he's a local guy here from Bloomington, and he is being charged with sexual assault, which is penetration rape. Five kick charges. He's being indicted on those 5 charges. And he is a man posing to be a woman, and he changed his name legally to Michelle. So when I asked the Bloomington Police Department if they were going to tell me his biological gender, they said, well, we don't get into all of that, and we aren't experienced in saying something offensive. So they're also treating the arrestee as a woman. So I don't know what that means. So we might actually have a Bloomington man in the McLean County Jail right now. I don't know. Got to ask that question of our sheriff and of our jail. But that would be of concern, right? To have men in women's prisons. I don't think I'd really need to explain why that's concerning, right? We shouldn't have men in women's prisons. Now, what's really interesting, and I hope that I can get to this story, I'm going to share this here with you guys. James O'Keefe, you guys know Dylan Mulvaney is, right? James O'Keefe went up to Dylan Mulvaney, and here we go. James O'Keefe going up to Dylan and asking him about women inmates being housed in um, male rapist claiming to be transgender being housed with females. Um, and this is really fun and interesting. Here, we'll just play it here. Here we go.
I'm James O'Keefe with OMG News outside the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. Dylan Mulvaney is inside the women's restroom right now, so I'm going to ask him for comment about our story regarding women being raped in prison by men claiming to be transgender. Here we go. Dylan, this is James O'Keefe, OMG. Women are being raped in a prison in Washington State by men claiming to be transgender. There's footage of them talking about the rape. Do you have a comment on the story here of the women being raped by the men claiming to be transgender? James O'Keefe, OMG News. What do you think about the women who are being raped by the men who are transgender? Do you have a comment about that?
Please don't come in the elevator.
What do you think about, what is your comment to the women who are being raped by men claiming to be transgender, Dylan? So we're here with Dylan here. Haven't had much Bud Light recently, but we're very interested in the women's prison. Dylan? Okay. She went into the women's restroom. Yep.
Okay, so there you have it, guys. There was Dylan Mulvaney being chased down by James O'Keefe. I can't wait to get to that story a little bit later. You guys on YouTube actually get that story before anybody else, so that's exciting. I can't believe it. I mean, running from James O'Keefe. I mean, it just goes to show you that these people truly don't have firm beliefs in this transgenderism ideology, even though Dylan has completely reconstructed his face. He doesn't believe it, because if he truly believed it, he would have stopped and answered James O'Keefe's question, and he didn't. All right, I'll be back here coming up. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. And folks, coming up in just a little bit, we will be talking about this story. The Idaho Tribune actually dug into Eric McDermott's, that's his name, Eric McDermott, and he's about 60 years old, and he's being charged with rape of a child. I mean, a 16-year-old. He's being arrested on the suspicion of raping a 16-year-old boy, and he's a high school teacher. But get this, folks, he was also an outspoken LGBT activist. We're going to get into that story because it matters. We're starting to see this rise in men who are raping children, raping women. What they'll do is they'll say, I'm transgender, hoping for some sort of leniency when it comes to the penalty of committing these heinous crimes. And what's interesting is that I do have some audio from James O'Keefe, who chased down Dylan Mulvaney being that trans TikToker. And he chased Dylan down to ask him questions about how there's these men claiming to be women, male rapists claiming to be transgender, and they're being housed with women. And he talks about this story in Washington State where a man raped a female inmate, claiming that he was transgender so that they were housed together. And James O'Keefe chasing down Dylan for his comments on this. And it just totally crickets from Dylan, like runs from James O'Keefe, literally running from James O'Keefe. And this is true journalism. This is true journalism and holding people to what they say their convictions are. So I do want to talk about that here coming up in a little bit. But first, let's talk about Rochelle Walensky. So Rochelle admitted to Congress that vaccinated individuals can spread the COVID virus. whoa, wait a second. So it took her 3 years, folks, 3 years to come out and admit the truth. So this is contrary, of course, to her statements about the COVID vaccine for the past 3 years, 2 years. She's attributed, this change to the evolution of science. She's saying that the science has evolved and that now people who have the vaccine can, in fact, get COVID, but that wasn't the case 2 years ago. So in December of 2021, Rochelle Walensky, the CDC director, warned that vaccine misinformation. She said, vaccine misinformation is one of the biggest public threats ever. But she didn't mention at the time that she was the leading spreader of the propaganda. Yes. So let's take a listen here. This is her most recent exchange with Congress. So here we go.
Director Walensky, in March,
if it'll play. Here we go.
Stated that, quote, vaccinated people do not carry the virus. They don't get sick. Do you remember making that statement?
Yeah, I remember such statements. I don't know if I remember that one specifically.
Okay, was that statement correct?
At the time it was. It was a wild type virus that we had. It was even before the Alpha variant. It was the initial wild type virus, and all the data at the time suggested that people who were vaccinated, even if they got sick, couldn't transmit the virus to someone else.
All right, is that statement still correct?
So we've had an evolution of science and an evolution of the virus. We have, since that wild type virus, had the Alpha variant, the Delta variant, now the Omicron variant, and numerous subvariants since. That statement is no longer correct with the Omicron subvariants we have right now.
So there you go. CDC Rochelle Walensky telling Congress that the vaccinated individuals can, in fact, get COVID. That's very contrary to what she was saying before. They spread lies on top of lies. Now, Walensky, she's saying that, it has to do with the COVID variants. They expect you to believe that garbage? Come on. Coming up, we are going to be talking with Jeannie Ives. Jeannie Ives, she is the host of Breakthrough Ideas, and I'm going to be talking with her specifically about a tweet I came across regarding the Olympia High School solar panels just malfunctioning and catching on fire. The students had to remote learn for the past few days. They might actually still be on remote learning. I got to double check that. But Olympia High School going up in flames there, these solar panels. And Jeannie Ives, she tweets out and she says, this is a very dangerous situation for firefighters. I want to talk to her about the tweet. That's next on the Morning Buzz. Okay, folks. We are going to be talking with Jeannie Ives here coming up. Um, we're going to talk about these solar panels. So, information being released shows that these students were evacuated after the school's solar panels on top of the ceiling caught fire, or on top of the roof caught fire. So, crews were able to get the fire under control in 23 minutes. Now, the Allen Township Fire Department, Stanford, Illinois, Danvers Fire, Bloomington Fire, and then there was all kinds of different fire departments. Atlanta Fire Department, they all were called out, and the chief here, Chief Eric Folk, he said that one of the solar panel inverters had malfunctioned, and crews were able to get it under control using fire extinguishers until a certified solar electrician arrived at the scene to disconnect it from the solar panels, so the inverter itself. So they had to call out an electrician to pull out this inverter, I think, that malfunctioned. So the tarps were placed on the gym floor after it was learned water was coming into the rooms directly below the fire. So there was some water, probably from them trying to put out the fire, that was leaking. It was later learned that the fire had melted and burned the roof membrane, which is how the water was able to get into the building. So ventilation fans were set up to deal with the smoke that made its way inside of the building. So the Illinois State Fire Marshal has determined that the fire appeared to start at the solar panels, but the overall cause of the fire remains under investigation. So they won't come out and say it, folks. They won't say that the solar panels blew up and caused a roof of a school. And this is the problem with pushing green ideology and this green climate change, woke, green weenie garbage when we don't understand. When we don't understand it, I mean, it's new stuff. And to just have a school board say, yeah, let's put solar panels on top of Olympia High School. Who did that? Who made that decision? Plus, we're not talking about the lithium, the cobalt that we mine to make these things, to make electric cars. We're not talking about the labor intensive, the slave work that's being put into making these green weenie projects, these solar panels. So we'll talk about it here coming up in just a little bit with Jeannie Ives, who tweeted about the situation. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. It's not racist to acknowledge black people have a crime problem. Fixing that problem would do far more to help the black community than the $100 billion of anti-racism lectures. So I'm going to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. And I also want to chat about this LGBT activist high school teacher in Idaho. He's under suspicion for rape of a 16-year-old boy. And I've got to talk about it here because we have so many cases like this, and you're probably scratching your head and you're like, I feel like Kat has one of these stories every single day. And there's a reason why these activist types are more likely to be a predator. There's a reason why, and I'm going to get into it here, but I don't want to waste any more time because I've got a very special guest on the line, Jeannie Ives. She's a former state representative, and she's the founder of Breakthrough Ideas. Breakthrough Ideas is a policy advocacy organization. Jeannie Ives, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, we've got to get into it. And folks, if you are watching via Facebook Live or on YouTube, you can see the pictures of the solar panels on fire at Olympia High School. So much for the clean energy, am I right? Jeannie, you actually tweeted out about this, and I just want to ask you, why tweet this out? You say, quote, completely dangerous situation for firefighters. Your thoughts here on the Olympia High School solar panels on the roof there just catching on fire?
Well, first of all, I'm not really a fan of this type of solar situation or really a lot of the solar projects that go on because they really don't return the investment that people have made in them. So, for example, they're saying essentially that the school is going to be supplied with power and then any excess power can be sold back to the grid. And while that's somewhat true, the solar is so intermittent and so you don't get power on all the time. And when that's not happening, and then you always have backup energy that's necessary in order to make sure that the school is functional and operational. So it's very it's not really that productive for schools to go down this path of putting solar panels on the rooftops. And it is in fact dangerous. So these solar panels, these arrays are electrified. And just as you had described in your previous segment, they had to have an electrician come in and shut the power off before it was even really safe to go further on top of the roof to a fire. And in fact, in many cases, it's unsafe for any firefighter to go up on a roof that has solar panels on it because if there's no space for them to walk in between, they can easily hit one of the panels, and that electrified panel can cause serious damage and danger to the firefighter. So, I mean, I don't know why you would put this on a school building when you want to keep kids safe. And then the worst thing is like what I understand of the fire situation there is that the kids are still not in school. Mm-hmm. So remote learning for an entire week, probably. It sounds like their gym is completely messed up. It sounds like their kitchen area as well. And so now the community should be asking, who's paying for this? Whose insurance policy is paying for this fire that was caused by a solar panel? Well, or it seems to be caused by a solar panel. And was it worth it in the end? Was all that the money that they put in and invested in putting the solar panels up, was at the end, was it worth it? And I'm going to argue right now that it's not.
Well, and then the next question, Jeannie, should we be asking the school board to take these solar panels off? Are they going to replace them, or you know what I mean? Because down the road, and my head goes here, what if there wasn't a solar electrician? What if the firefighters couldn't put it out in time? What if the kids weren't evacuated fast enough? What if one of the solar panels fell through the roof? And because the roof membrane there, and this is all according to WMBD's reports here, the roof membrane was burnt through. That's why that's why the water seeped through the roof, is because the roof membrane was melted and burnt. So what if one of these huge solar panels fell through the roof on top of a child? So now the question becomes, should we continue to put these on top of schools, being that we have something like this?
Yeah, I don't know that it's worth the risk to just in terms of the taxpayer money. And I honestly think probably you can evacuate the children in time, but you never know, right? These things can go up so quickly that it doesn't work that way. But you would hope that they could at least get the children out safely. I don't know how far we want to take that argument. But the truth is was it worth for the disruption in the learning that you've already had? Is it worth the cost of now completely redoing the inside of the school and the rooftop and all this disruption? Was that worth it? No. And I think these panels have been up probably less than 2 years. So it's already a failed experiment. And not to mention, solar is a failed experiment. It never delivers whatever its rated capacity is. So let's say they say, it's going to deliver 1,200 kilowatts of energy. And that's its capacity. It, maybe generates 10 to 20% of that. And it's so intermittent as to be a joke, right? Solar is a very niche energy source. And it's possible in some parts of the United States to use it effectively. It's not really something that Illinoisans should invest heavily in, though, at all. Mm-hmm. And the only reason that people are doing it is because there are massive subsidies when it comes to solar for people's green energy fantasies and their misconceptions about what the climate really is doing. So, I mean, this is not, we're a coal state, honestly. We're a nuclear state. Natural gas provides most of our electrification throughout the state. So I encourage your people, your listeners down there, they should tune into the MISO app, the MISO. You can download the app, and at any time it can tell you where your energy is being generated from.
Wow.
So, and when you check that out, I'm sorry, it's not solar. It just isn't.
It just isn't. Yeah. So, and then we also have a problem when it comes to counties' rights, property owners' rights. We're starting to see this a lot in Livingston County. I've talked a lot with the folks there where they have these massive solar companies coming in to put in solar power plants. And it's amazing how they try to contort the language and they say, oh, it's solar farms. No. It's actually not producing anything. Farms, we think, pigs, we think, production and like we're growing things. No, we aren't producing any kind of energy from solar farms, from so-called solar farm. They're power plants that don't actually yield a whole lot of power. And then we're imposing these solar power plants onto people with property that could actually be used to produce something.
Well, and I do believe that you have a large solar array going up or it has just recently been put up in your area there, and it is a problem. So, again, these are only profitable to the folks who put them in and control them because they're getting large subsidies from the government to do so. Otherwise, they're not profitable. Nobody would do it on the open market without this massive subsidy that is both supported by ratepayers and taxpayers. They're supported by both. Now, you're really hitting a hot button here because just in January, just a couple months ago, they changed the standards where it used to be that counties could determine how close a solar array could be sited next to other people's property, and they were going to let counties make that decision. And then, and actually, Governor Pritzker during the 2022 election promised that he would keep it with the counties and that the counties could make a decision on whether they wanted solar or wind projects in their area and what those siting requirements would be. That completely got changed during lame duck session with a bunch of legislators who were no longer going to be accountable to the taxpayers because they were finished doing their time down there for whatever reason. And they passed instead new siting requirements that are state siting requirements, and they're so egregious that you can have somebody sell out to the solar companies, sell out their farm area to the solar companies, reaping thousands of dollars in a year. Mm-hmm. I'm told that you get about $1,000 an acre for giving up your farm for 30 years to give up your farm field to a solar company. That means that you get that money risk-free every single year in. You don't have to plant, you don't have to do anything. So they're covering fertile farm ground in Illinois with these solar panels, and they're saying with the new siting requirements that they literally can be put as close to 150 feet from a non-participating owner's property. Building. That actually destroys other people's property values, and that's a problem. Now, one other thing about this, though, they're also starting to back away from some of this because they just passed a bill out of the Senate. It's in the House now, saying that a particular enterprise zone will be free of solar. And so they're starting to do some carve-outs on this. Well, the biggest carve-out we should have is that you can put no solar panels, on fertile farm ground in Illinois. That should be the biggest mandate that we have.
Yeah. Well, and because fertile farm ground actually produces something, and you bring up a great point here in McLean County. We actually, and this was a wind issue, but here in McLean County, our government was supposed to be collecting, I think it was escrow funds, and these funds are supposed to be used to decommission windmills. And we weren't getting that money from the company itself. They were supposed to be paying us money so that way we could go out and decommission them and with money that we got from them, and they weren't paying us that money. So the question also of solar panels, what if they combust like what happened at the Olympia High School? Who's going to take care of that? And if they're built out right next to these houses, I mean, I could see, and you mean, one inverter goes bad, malfunctions, and then the next one, then the next one. I mean, you have an explosion at that point. So it's dangerous, and I don't think that we really care. Do we care that we're just kind of like willy-nilly, oh yeah, let's just go green energy without looking at all of the factors and looking at all of the problems that come with these solar panels. So,
well, I mean, and solar in Illinois is literally like trying to grow a pineapple here. It just doesn't work. We've got so much other better energy sources in Illinois, and those energy sources are unfortunately getting retired because of mandates, really kind of fake emission standard mandates that are coming out of the state and the federal government. And, right now, what you do see happening is that other countries have already gone down this path that Biden and Pritzker want to take us. Other countries are reversing themselves because they have realized that they actually need coal power, they actually need natural gas. Mm-hmm. And one of those is Germany. I mean, they suddenly got caught off of their natural gas supply when the Russian-Ukraine war broke out. And that now, they're figuring out that they need their own internal energy sources. So they've started like 27 new coal plants. Mm-hmm. And before that, they had said, no, we're not going with coal. They'd pretty much shuttered most of their coal. Well, guess what? Coal works day in and day out. You can depend on it being there when you want to turn on the lights, run your laundry machine, your dishwasher, or anything else.
Right. And Jeannie Ives, we've got to take a break. It's kind of funny, regressive. It's more regressive than it is progressive. They want us to take us back literally to the dark ages where we didn't have lights. Jeannie Ives, thanks so much. How do we get information from Breakthrough Ideas, and where can we find you?
Yes, our website is breakthrough-ideas.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter and listen to my podcast at breakthrough-ideas.com.
Wonderful. Jeannie Ives, folks, on the other side, we're going to keep talking about this green energy thing because the town of Normal, actually, they could be looking at a potential ordinance banning natural gas in Uptown for this new development. And they want to go all green, all electric, no gas. But actually, that might not be good, because there was something that happened in Berkeley, California, when the city of Berkeley, they tried to do the same thing. They were met with a lawsuit. So I'm going to talk about that here next. We will be back here, folks, on the Morning Buzz. What you are seeing here on your screen is a bunch of solar panels on top of roofs. So the Normal Town Council, they passed $80,000 with these FAR associates. It's a plan for Uptown 2.0 south of the tracks, and they're looking at possibly eliminating natural gas from being a part of this development. So Meanwhile, we've got Mayor Chris Coos. He's received maximum campaign donations from a Chicago, Washington, D.C. lobbyist who works for big green energy companies. So while they're going green, he's getting green. I'm sorry, I've got to point this out. This is huge stuff. And not to mention that this Washington, D.C. lobbyist, right, Jonathan Callaway, has given money to not only Coos, but Kathleen Lorenz, Andrew Byers. Let's talk about it. Whoa, John Fetterman. He just chaired the Senate subcommittee hearing, and he could barely read his scripted remarks, folks. I am live on YouTube and on Facebook if you want to see me in the studio. Before we took the break, we were talking about green energy with Jeannie Ives. And Jeannie Ives, she was a former state representative. Breakthrough Ideas, an advocacy group, organization for policy. And you guys are really going to want to check that out. Now I've got this story, and I worked on this story yesterday, and shout out to BLN News' Diane Benjamin, because she did some homework on this. Normal, they recently passed this $80,000 for associates to try to plan. So this is a developer who's planning out Uptown 2.0 South, and this is south of the tracks in Normal, and this plan could eliminate natural gas. And they might not, this whole development, right? These buildings that go up as a part of 2.0, they could be nixing natural gas from being a part of this development. So we've got that. Then we also have Mayor Chris Coos receiving the maximum campaign donations from, get this, a Chicago, Washington, D.C. lobbyist who works for big green energy companies. So the town is developing Uptown South, and they have with a potential goal of going all green. This would mean no natural gas would be installed, and Uptown South would be all electric. So I've talked with Stan Nord about this before. He said that this would be the first municipality to try to pull something like this off. Not that others haven't tried. So this is a story. This is a case. Can the town of Normal pull this off legally, or will they be met with lawsuits like the one in California? So the California Restaurant Association sued Berkeley, California over an ordinance making natural gas pipelines illegal to install in one building. So the court found that it violated federal law, which is the Energy Policy and Conservation Act, because it indirectly regulates appliances that use natural gas. So by cutting off the natural gas, you're affecting these appliances. And there's something in the law that says that you can't do that. You can't cause appliances to not via an ordinance. So state, and this is what the judge said in this case, state and localities can't skirt the text of a broad preemption provisions by doing indirectly what Congress says they can't do directly. So the case, if you want to read about the case, you can go to cities929.com, click on the case, look at it. Basically, you can't cut off natural gas in a building via an ordinance. Now, the town of Normal does not currently have an ordinance up to vote that would ban natural gas or eliminate natural gas completely from Uptown South. However, we have Pam Reese on record stating that FAR associates, the people who are developing this out, understand the town's policy on sustainability. And she also said that eliminating natural gas is a possible regulation moving forward because the experts recommend it. You need to know this. You need to know this because this has already been done. This has already been done. People have fought against this. You can't draft up by federal law, and there's a precedent here, you can't draft up an ordinance that bans natural gas. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Good morning. We'll be back here. We're going to be talking a lot national news. We've got quite a bit going on as far as this LGBTQ activist guy. He is being accused of raping a child, which is so sad. I don't even really want to do this story, but it's so important that I do. So that way you understand why the likelihood of these LGBTQ activists being predators is so high. I'm going to break that down for us here coming up in just a little bit. Also, do want to talk about another story. John Fetterman finally showed back up to work more than 2 months after checking himself into Walter Reed Army Medical Center to be treated for severe depression. He had only been on the job for about a month, and then he was experiencing issues from a serious stroke when he went to Walter Reed. And then he showed up yesterday, it was, in his hoodie and shorts, and he refused to take any questions from the press regarding this. Look, the people who loved him should have pulled him from running after he had the stroke and not put his health and recovery at such risk, particularly knowing that he had an issue with depression. But the Democrats, they don't care. They don't care. They're more interested in a political agenda than they were Fetterman's long-term health. And that's why the Democrats will run, they will run a potted plant before giving up their agenda. Also, I want to talk about this. This is a interesting story because of what has been going on in the news. And comment if you have seen this. Andrew Lester and Ralph Yarl, right? This is the case where the 84-year-old man was scared to death because this black kid, 6 foot, big kid, right, was tugging on his exterior door late at night, and he shot him through this storm door. He shot him through the storm door, opened up the interior door within seconds, shot the black kid, Ralph, which is sad, tragic incident. Ralph, he went to the house not knowing it wasn't the house he was supposed to be at, allegedly, right? This is a case that's going to be ongoing, but he said that he went to the wrong house and he was just looking for a different house, and he got shot by this 84-year-old man. I thought, look, 84 years old. He saw this big guy, and I don't think race had anything to do with it really, because the guy expressed concern, and we have that from the probable cause statement from Andrew Lester. Police said that he expressed concern multiple times for the kid that he shot. Now, if this was a race thing, the black kid, Ralph, came to his house, right? Came to his house. If this 84-year-old man, Andrew Lester, was a racist, right? You would think that he'd be going out and shooting black people. The kid came to his house, right? And I've had people tell me, "Oh, he shouldn't have done that. He wasn't on his in his house, and he shot him through the storm door exterior, and he wasn't, an immediate threat." And I was like, "Well, what Lester could have done, right? If say this was a criminal, right, and he didn't know that, and he was pulling on the door, there's no way that Lester could have defended himself against somebody of that size. He's 84 years old, and it's tragic. It's sad. It's an incident. Now that's getting crazy amount of national news coverage, and this story isn't. And I pulled this story because this story is worse, in my opinion. It should concern people at a national level, and it's not being talked about because there's no racial element to it. And this is just an example of how CNN is trying to start a race war with this white man shoots black kid narrative. So here's the story. This boyfriend of Kaylin Gillis, she was 20 years old. He's describing his panic and after this gunman fired on them with a 12-gauge shotgun after they accidentally pulled into his driveway. So the boyfriend of Caitlin said that he tried to step on the gas as fast as he could. So he pulls in, gets shot. This is much different than having somebody late at night pull in, get out of their car, and pull on the exterior door late at night, right? And this is much different, and it's not getting national attention. Why? Because Kaylin was white and the shooter was white, and we should give this national attention. The guy was, and I think that there's also a question here. I mean, we have this story. We also have the story of Lester and Ralph. Maybe people are scared out of their minds, and people are grabbing their guns instantly, right, when feeling threatened. Maybe that's what this is all about, is that we're living in a time where crime is up and you can't take risks. Otherwise, it's your life, not theirs. So I pulled this story as well. So we'll be back here on the Morning Buzz. Actress, she's Patty LuPone, and she says that she can't tell the difference between the Christian right and the Taliban. Let's take a listen here, shall we? Hold on real quick. I'm going to play this here for us. This is Patty LuPone. She's an actress, and, everybody's wondering and asking themselves, hey, why is it we have such a tension in America? Why is there such tension in America? Why do we all hate each other? Why are we all on edge? It's because these mainstream media, the people on The View, are constantly bullying Christians. They're constantly bullying white people. They're calling white people Nazis. They're calling Christians the Taliban. Let's take a listen.
This before, and I'm going to get in trouble. But I have said this before, and it's been in print. I don't know what the difference between our Christian right and the Taliban is. I have no idea what the difference is.
You're not the only person who's said that.
I just don't know what the difference is.
Yeah.
What's happening in this country right now in the name of religion is so dangerous.
It's so dangerous. Are you serious right now? You're calling Christians the Taliban right now. Christians have been bullied by secular extremists like Patty LuPone for way too long. No more. We're not going to allow it. Also, I do want to talk about this trans-Montana lawmaker named Zoe Zafir, and she lashes out at her GOP colleagues on the House floor because Montana right now, they are considering bills that ban certain gender mutilation procedures on minors. And here's this trans Montana lawmaker, Zoe, and I'm just saying, hold the line, Montana. Don't listen to this. Don't listen to this person. They are wrong. Listen.
I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
One more time. Hold on.
The only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands.
So I've said it multiple times here on the Morning Buzz. This whole trans genocide narrative is a ruse. It's not real. In 2022, there was about 30 transgender people who lost their lives due to homicide, which is incredibly sad. Any loss of life is incredibly sad. However, we can't deny that these cases, the 34 homicides, was because of things like prostitution, drug overdoses. They're in this line of work, right? This occupation comes with risks. That was at least 75% of the cases, the 30 cases in 2022. None of the cases were because people were targeting transgender people or they were killing people because they were trans. That's just not true. Which brings me to this story here. These activists, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. I've got an activist here who has been arrested on suspicion of raping a 16-year-old boy. His name's Eric Dermont. He's 60 years old, of Boise, and he was booked on charges of rape and sexual battery. And Eric McDermott, who taught world studies, AP human geography, and coached basketball at Fairmont Junior High School, was an outspoken LGBT activist. Yes. So he contacted a former student via this dating hookup site in 2020, and he was sharing numerous nude photos of himself, and he took the teen back to his home and allegedly sexually assaulted him. The now former teacher is expected to appear in court April 27th and is currently being held on $1 million bail. So I'm not saying all activists are sexual predators, but the likelihood of it increases. Think about it. Why would a teacher become an activist? It is to get closer to the kids. It is to groom them. The Idaho Tribune, they dug into Eric's past, and it's been revealed now that he is a very prominent LGBT, ABCDFG activist. And he volunteered for the Pride Foundation, Idaho Leadership Action Team. There's several photos of him on social media. Eric's own social media, he openly discussed his quote-unquote youth outrage. So he's trying to reach youth to get them to be activists for the LGBTQ community. The Tribune, the Idaho Tribune, noted that he traveled all over the state attending drag shows, pride events, in search of volunteers as young as 16. Your activism as a teacher has to be left at the door. You cannot be an activist and also be a teacher. Okay, kids gravitate to people who are outspoken, who are loud, and have any sort of passion about a belief. And here's why. Because kids are under the impression, young teenagers are under the impression that you know what you're talking about when you speak so passionately about something you believe in. And pedophiles and predators, they know that if they speak passionately about anything, that'll attract youth, young people. Because that at that age, you're starving for information. You're starving for some sort of information about anything. You're learning at that age. And that's why you also see a lot of priests exploit their positions of powers, because kids mistaken their passion and their activism for knowledge, and they're drawn to it. And that is a grooming tactic. This is grooming. So the next time you see a rainbow flag in a teacher's classroom, remember the story, and remember that the likelihood that teacher is using their activism to try to groom children and to bring them into this cause or to entice them, that's what's going on. This is a tactic used by predators all of the time, and we need to be made aware of it. 309-451-9299. You can text in. Now, I do want to talk about John Fetterman. He finally showed back up to work more than 2 months ago, 2 months after checking himself into Walter Reed Army Medical Center. He was treated for severe depression. He was only on the job for like a month, I think. And he was experiencing all kinds of issues with his severe stroke that he had while while campaigning, right? He wasn't able to heal. And then he went and checked himself into Walter Reed because he was experiencing some severe depression. He showed up finally in his hoodie and shorts, and he's refusing to take any questions from the press regarding this because he can't. And look, the people who loved him should have pulled him out from running after he had the stroke, but they put his health and recovery at such risk by putting him out there and running him, particularly knowing that he had an issue with depression. Why would you do that? It's because the Democrats are more interested in a political agenda than they were Fetterman's long-term health. And that's just the case for all of the Democrats. They would run a potted plant if it meant that they could keep if it was in the interest of their political agenda. Now, the concern is how much the campaign might have hurt his recovery, given his performance here yesterday when he resumed chairmanship of this Senate Agricultural Committee subcommittee. So This is a subcommittee that he's chairing. It's on food, nutrition, specialty crops, organics, and research. And just take a listen. Here we go.
I call to this hearing of the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Food and Nutrition, Specialty Crops, Organics, and Research to order. Chairwoman Stabenow. And Ranking Member Boozman, thank you so much for coming. I thank you for your leadership on this committee, and I look forward to working with you to pass a farm bill. A farm bill that works for small farmers, rural communities, and hungry Americans. I would also like to thank my ranking member, Senator Braun. And I look forward to working closely with you. SNAP is one of the most effective programs to fight hunger and poverty in the country. In my time and effort in IFAS, as the mayor of Braddock to lieutenant governor to now, I have heard from Pennsylvanians about their support for SNAP. Hunger is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It's all of our issue that we have to take it on.
What? Okay, so two things stood out to me here about his comments. Now, as bad and halting as they were, I mean, this is like, I mean, he's reading something. I don't know. That was bad. That was painful. And it just goes on. And I can't even really understand what he's talking about. It still might be better than Joe Biden, who whenever he's up there, he can't even stand up straight. He can't even walk up a flight of stairs, folks. But imagine when we have to think about that, right? They're both in such poor condition that they shouldn't be there. But the people who claim to love them let this happen. They're just being fed things to be read at this point. He's straight up reading off of something, and it's something so not, I mean, why can't you come up with that off of the cuff? It's not good for the people of Pennsylvania. It's not good for the people of this country to have people in these leadership positions who are in bad condition. Bottom line. It just gets worse and worse. John Fetterman, I feel badly for him. The second thing, that this was just preparatory remarks, the introductions and such, that shouldn't have required a script, right? That's what I'm saying, is that this was just kind of an introduction, and I don't know why he had to have some sort of prepared remarks. What will happen when Fetterman has to do more than simply read from a prepared script, because he is going to have to face that as a senator? Can you truly run a committee when you have the problems that he has? So Fetterman also seemed to struggle a bit with asking one of the witnesses a prepared question. Let's take a listen here. Here we go. Here we go. He's like looking for the question. He's like thumbing through his papers, and he's trying to ask the question here.
Brown. Food banks are really critical for the support foundation of SNAP. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
The Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, was established to provide emergency food assistance to low-income individuals. And these individuals may not qualify for SNAP, but they might need additional support. Food banks, like Philibustance and knowing personally, they're the kind of quality of the work that you do in my own state. They distribute 85% of TFAP foods nationwide. As Americans struggle with high food costs, how have you been able to allow you to continue to provide?
It's so painful. How have you been able? He can't do it, folks. And it's, why are the Democrats more interested in their political agenda than they are Fetterman's long-term health? Got to take a break. On the other side, what I want to talk about is why this story isn't getting national attention. It's a sad story. Tried to step on the gas as fast as I could, says the boyfriend of Kaylin Gillis. Now, Kaylin was 20 years old, and the boyfriend's describing the panic that he was feeling as this gunman fired on them with a 12-gauge shotgun. Kaylin lost her life. He fired on them after they accidentally pulled into his driveway. This is very kind of similar to the Ralph and Andrew Lester story that has gotten so much media attention. I mean, 57 times CNN has talked about it from the time that it happened all the way until Tuesday. That's how much they've talked about this story specifically. It's in the news. Mainstream won't stop talking about it, but they won't talk about Kaylin, and I'll tell you why here coming up after the break. Hello. How are we today? We will be talking about that story. I also want to hit on this really funny story. It's a teenager that has been charged after a car he was driving went airborne and crashed on top of a home in Yadkinville, North Carolina. So this is a funny story. I can't wait to get to it. Court documents say the 17-year-old was speeding more than 70 miles per hour, speeding over the speed limit, 70 miles per hour. So he lost control of the car, hit a tree, stump, drove on top of a homeowner's car. Like, this car just straight up took off, and it landed on top of a home in North Carolina. I was just like, whoa, this is insane. I'm going to see if he's okay. I think no, none of them were injured. The family inside, there were 2 adults and 2 children. None of them were injured. The actual kid himself, 17-year-old, Tyler is his name. He was taken to the hospital where he was being treated for his injuries. He's now facing charges, driving after. So there was definitely alcohol. So what's the stupidest? I think that this is definitely takes the cake as stupidest thing you've ever done as a teenager. This is a wild story. Okay. So, coming up in just a little bit, we will be talking about that, but also, I did want, so yesterday I didn't do this and I should have done this. Waco, Texas. So, you guys remember this, and I want to, kind of just say this, and I don't think a whole lot of people know what actually happened in Waco, Texas. The ATF and the FBI could have arrested David Korsh uh, any of the many times that he left the compound in Waco, Texas. Instead, they wanted to look tough, and they did a gung ho arm raid that resulted in the death of 5 agents. And they used a dozen armored combat vehicles to besiege the compound for a month and a half. Then 30 years ago, yesterday, so it was yesterday, even though David Korsh had agreed to peacefully surrender after completing his religious manifesto, they gassed the building before storming it like it was not like a Nazi bunker on D-Day. Thanks to their recklessness, 82 people were killed for no reason, including 28 children. And I hope we remember the dead and remind ourselves that the tragedies that occurred when government agencies feel empowered to do whatever they want. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. And real quick, I was sharing this with our folks here on YouTube Live and on Facebook Live. You can text in at 309-451-9299. Coming up shortly, we are going to be talking with Scott Robbins for Scott's Takes. Waco, Texas. Now, they've completely, there's a Netflix series. I haven't watched it, but they're completely trying to push out a narrative that just isn't true about what happened in Waco, Texas. Now, the ATF and the FBI, they could have arrested this guy, David Korsh, any of the many times that he left the compound in Waco, Texas. Instead, the FBI, they wanted to look tough. And they did this gung-ho armed raid that resulted in the death of 5 agents. And then they used a dozen armored combat vehicles to besiege the compound for a month and a half. So yesterday marked 30 years ago when that happened. And even though David Korsh could have totally agreed, he agreed to peacefully surrender after completing his religious manifesto. Some background for you, David was a complete nut and he was a cult leader. And that was the whole Waco, Texas thing. And he agreed to peacefully surrender after completing this religious manifesto. Yeah, I think he thought he was the next Jesus Christ, or he was Jesus Christ, or whatever. He was, the second coming, or whatever. He was a total nut job. But get this, he agreed to surrender, but they gassed the building anyway. They gassed the building before storming it like it was a Nazi bunker on D-Day. Thanks to their recklessness, 82 people were killed for no reason, including 28 children. So yesterday, that happened 30 years ago, and I just want to remember the dead and remind ourselves the tragedies that occur when government agencies feel empowered to do whatever they want. So we're remembering the victims, the 82 people who were killed for no reason. David, I'm not saying that he wasn't, and that he didn't, that he should not have been taken down. He should have been taken down, but really, after he surrendered and agreed to come out peacefully, you guys went in anyway and gassed all those people. It's insane. 309-451-9299. We are going to get to this story. I want to get to the story about Kaylin Gillis, and I will get to that here probably in the 8 o'clock hour. The boyfriend of Kaylin is describing his panic as this gunman had fired on them with a 12-gauge shotgun after they accidentally pulled into his driveway. There's a lot of similar things with this case as with the Ralph and Andrew Lester case. Andrew Lester, the 84-year-old man who shot this black kid. who accidentally came to his door. He went to the wrong house late at night, and he was pulling on this exterior door. Within seconds of opening the interior door, Andrew Lester shot this kid. The kid is alive. He's alive and was released from the hospital the following day after the gunshot wounds. But he's under all kinds of stuff. The courts, they're going after him hard. The media is going after Lester. They're saying that there was racial stuff to that. I just don't think so. I think that there is a narrative that CNN is pushing in that case. But this is interesting because Kaylin and the shooter here, they are both white. And that's why the national news media is not talking about this story. And I'm going to talk about it because this is a sad story. These people pulled up in a driveway on accident, and this guy came out with a 12-gauge shotgun. I also think it's kind of bizarre that we've got similar stories here. And is there an uptick in people reaching for their guns right away as soon as somebody approaches them on their property? Is it because we're so afraid of this rise in crime? Are we on edge? So I do want to talk about that. But kind of a weird story before I take the break. This teenager was charged after speeding and going airborne, crashing into a home's roof. So yes, there was alcohol involved. This is a wild story. 17 years old. His name's Tyler. And this happened in North Carolina where he was speeding 70 miles over the speed limit, 70 miles per hour over the speed limit. And he lost control of the vehicle. He hit a tree stump and drove over the top of a homeowner's car that was parked in their driveway and then eventually landed on top of their house. Now, the car crashed into the living room and made the home unlivable. So there was a lot of damage done to the house with the car. Thankfully, everybody's okay. Even Tyler, the 17-year-old, who had a blood alcohol concentration level of 0.02 roughly 4 hours after the crash. So he had been consuming alcohol. He's being charged with reckless driving and consuming alcohol under the age of 21. These are both misdemeanors, but he was okay. He went airborne, though. Troopers say a passenger inside the car was also taken to the hospital, and they were both treated for non-life-threatening injuries. So everybody's okay. Even the family inside is okay. There was 2 adults, 2 children inside. They're okay. None of them were injured. But car just completely launches after he... I mean, what's the stupidest thing you've ever done? I think that takes the cake, folks. I don't think any of us have done something that stupid as a teenager. But what's the stupidest thing you've ever done as a teenager? Text it in at 309-451-9299. We'll be back on the other side.
Wait.
Scott Robbins right over there. This is Scott's Takes Morning Buzz. I'm Kat Peterson, and can't decide, Scott Robbins. Is it John Fetterman or Joe Biden? Which one is the worst, is in the worst
Isn't
condition
this something? Remember the big kerfuffle over Kofevi?
Kofevi. Oh, yeah, that was Joe, wasn't it?
And Trump's hands shaking when he was, Donald Trump misspelled coffee.
Oh,
and people
that's
thought,
right.
Yeah, well, Kofevi, what is that? He didn't say he's not fit to be president of the United States. And then the hand shaking when he was drinking water. And the stilted gait, I think it was called, when he was walking up the runway. Or walking up the gate to get on the Air Force One. It was all these things, right?
Oh, yeah, and then when he was running down the ramp.
Yeah.
He ran down the ramp, and he was like kind of like briskly walking down the ramp, and then they were like, "Oh my gosh, he's so old." It's like, what?
Yeah, stiff gait or whatever. That was Donald Trump, all right. And when you think about that now, you think about, golly, man, where are we? I heard you play the Fetterman clip earlier today, and I think I want you to play it again because it's one of those things. If you don't mind, we're doing this on the fly, folks. But what you and I were talking about this off air, and I kind of want to bring the conversation on air. Because there is a side of me that when I hear this, I'm uneasy. Number one, I don't feel comfortable hearing it, and it almost creates him into a sympathetic character. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's okay. I think there's room for both. I think I can be a sympathetic character, and I can also look at the people who pushed him out there, namely his climber wife. And all the other people that surrounded him, they're bad people.
Who went on vacation when he was admitted into the hospital for severe depression. How could you do that?
Well, she went to communist Canada, so I would imagine she was welcomed with open arms there. But these people are awful, awful people. I think the same thing about Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. What was Joe Biden? What is this family doing to this old man? I mean, Joe Biden could have been making shady deals in his garage, grilling burgers for the rest of his life and made a great living and not have to deal with any of this. John Fetterman is already rich. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. John Fetterman could have taken his ball and gone home and really concentrated on his health. Mm-hmm. I know, coming back from a catastrophic health situation myself, that it takes time. It takes time. You've gone through something that it wrecks your body, and you got to come back from it. You got to build the strength. You got to learn how to talk. Got to learn how to walk. I did all that too. I get it, but nobody was pushing me to be a senator, for God's sakes. And so this is John Fetterman yesterday coming back. This first time back, right, from the mental institution he had put himself into.
Mm-hmm. And this is an introduction.
Suffering from severe depression. Yeah, this is an introduction on he's a chairman of a committee.
Yeah, agriculture committee.
Yeah, some agriculture committee on food safety and all that. Anyway, this is Fetterman yesterday. Listen to this. He's reading this, by the way.
I call to this hearing of the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Food and Nutrition, Specialty Crops, Organics, and Research to order.
You know, I think we can stop it right there. I seriously, I think you get the idea. And I want to say it's John Fetterman's fault, but I don't really blame him for it. Mm-hmm. It's like all of these awful people that were around him that benefited from the fact that he could become a senator. Gee whiz. Now, let's get to the president, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Who's worse? Who's worse?
It's just flights of fancy with this guy. He takes off on tangents and just says things. And he did it again yesterday. Where was he yesterday? I don't even know where he was yesterday.
Oh.
And I should know that, but I don't know that. But
Maryland.
He was in Maryland, yeah. And global warming is eating his brain away, what's left of it. And anyway, I don't know what clip you want to start with here, Kat. Which clip is this one?
Created more than 12,000 brand new jobs.
Okay, listen to this clip, and then we'll discuss it. He said this before. He said this a lot of times, even though it's patently false. Anyway, here's the President of the United States. Here we go.
We've created more than 12,000 brand new jobs in 2 years.
No, you haven't.
That's more than any president in American history has created in 4 years.
Mm.
Listen, let me just tell you something. This guy didn't create 12,000 new jobs, okay, period. A lot of people went back to work after the pandemic. That goes into this equation. He didn't create anything. So again, he's been telling this lie over and over and over and over again. He continues to do so. And now we move on to which clip is this one now, Kat?
This one's another lie. He talks about how he's been in and out of Iraq or Iran. I don't know.
This is demonstrably another lie too. Anyway, here we go.
I've been in and out of Iraq and Iran,
What?
but Iraq, not
What?
Iran. I misspoke.
Oh,
Iraq
God.
and Afghanistan over 30 times.
No, you haven't. No, you haven't. That's been disproven a million times over since then. That's another lie. Chalk up another lie. And then the song everybody's been waiting for is the closing number from Joe Biden yesterday. And Kat, what do we have here?
He tried to spell the word 8, like the number.
Okay, again, keep in mind, Kofevi. Remember that one?
Kofevi.
I mean, anytime Trump said anything remotely close to being wrong, in terms of grammar, structure, there was like, he's not fit to be president. The man has got senile. Listen to our president. This is not exactly the Count on Sesame Street here. All right, here we go.
But we have 1,000 billionaires in America.
Yeah.
Know the average tax rate they pay?
No.
8 EIGH%.
EIGH%. What? EIGH%. Play that again. Did he just say EIGH%? Did he leave the T off?
But we have 1,000 billionaires in America. Know the average tax rate they pay? 8 EIGH%. 8%.
Now, it may be a tough word to spell. I mean, there are some words that are just tough to spell. But if you can't spell it properly, or if you're not sure, you don't include it. He could have just said 8. He didn't have to spell it out so everybody knew he couldn't spell the word. David Van Camp on the other show that I do, he was talking yesterday. And really, this is true. If you go back into the vault, Joe has all kinds of trouble with numbers. Numbers boggle his mind. He can't write
3.6 trillion.
Yeah, and just crazy pull it out of your rear end numbers that he constantly throws out there. 12,000 new jobs, please.
I'm sorry, but this is the guy that we're supposed to believe got all of these votes.
81 million.
What?
Yeah.
There's
81
just
million.
no
Well,
way.
no. 81 trillion gazillion votes. Billion, jillion, zillion,
There's
gazillion.
just no
I know.
way. And what really bothered me about that clip, he's talking about billionaires, and I'm just thinking
Yeah.
to myself, you're one of them, Joe. There's literal transcripts that say that you got money from the CCP. All of you and your family members. Whatever happened to that scandal?
His income tax says he and Jill combined made a little over $500,000 last year. And they gave a sliver of that to charities. Now, Joe's not willing to cough up the dough, but he wants your money to pay for things that he likes, little projects that he likes. He doesn't actually give his own money to it. All right, one other thing, CNN. So Brian Stelter, did you see this? Did you see this story?
Yeah, he's out of a job again.
Brian Stelter has no idea why he got fired from CNN. None. He has no idea. Let me clue you in, dopey. You had no ratings. Zero. More people are watching Home and Garden TV and Andy Griffith reruns than you. That's why you got fired.
And then he got a job at Vanity Fair, and I think he's even lost that job now.
Already?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, that guy wears out his welcome in a hurry, doesn't he?
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later, Kat. See you. Have a good day.
See you later, Scott
All right.
Robbins. That's Brian Stelter, the potato. We'll be back. Speaking of CNN host Don Lemon. Ramaswamy. I really am starting to really like Vivek Ramaswamy. He's put his name in the hat for the Republican presidential candidacy, and he's an entrepreneur, and he just goes after Don Lemon on CNN, and I can't wait to play it here next on The Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey. Bloomington Normal. Be sure to be a part of the show and text in. Got a few things I want to talk about. One thing is the Kaylin Gillis story. Her boyfriend now describing the moment he got pulled over, or the moment he pulled into a driveway in rural upstate New York, and he was fired on by a homeowner armed with a 12-gauge shotgun. Now, one of those shots fatally wounded Gillis. Now she's gone. According to an NBC report, there was an interview done with Blake. He's 19. And he was driving one fateful night, and he said, I tried to step on the gas as fast as possible. And that's when the fatal shot came through the door. So or through the SUV. So this was late at night as well. He turned onto the wrong property. And this is an interesting story because it has very similar details to the Andrew Lester and Ralph Yarl story that has been dominating the news because there's racial narrative that has been cooked up by CNN in that case. But yet this hasn't gotten any kind of national attention. So I want to bring this story up. And then also I want to discuss the global American empire. I want to discuss the growing relationship between Latin America and China and its contrast with the U.S. relationships with our neighbors to the south. That's next. Woo! Good morning, folks. Hey, thanks so much for joining me here. What are we going to be talking about? I want to discuss the growing relationship between Latin America and China and its contrast to the U.S.'s relationship with our neighbors to the south. Let's talk about it. Also, want to bring up this story. It's coming out of North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina. This is a sad story, folks. It's about these teenagers. They were in a car, and they drove up on a house that they weren't supposed to be at. They accidentally drove into this driveway. Her name's Kaylin Gillis, and her boyfriend described this moment. He pulled into the wrong driveway in a rural upstate, not New York, or North Carolina. It's New York, rural upstate New York. And he was fired on by a homeowner with a 12-gauge shotgun. The reason why I'm bringing this story up today is because there's a lot of similarities between this story and the Andrew Lester, Ralph Yarl story, the race story, where this 84-year-old white man shot this black kid who was pulling on the exterior door at his home, and apparently Ralph was at the wrong house, and he had pulled on the door of this wrong house, and he was supposed to be picking up his kid brother or something like that, and he was pulling on this door, and Andrew Lester opens up the door. Ralph is there. He opens up the interior door, shoots through the exterior door. Ralph made it out with his life. Very tragic incident, but CNN is, of course, trying to start a race war, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to cook up this race narrative, and that's why that story got national attention. And this story is under the radar. Nobody's talking about it, but it's the same. It's kind of the same thing where we've got teenagers who pull up on this house and they didn't mean to, and this guy comes out and shoots them, and Kaylin lost her life, and she was just 20 years old. So let's take a listen here to the story. I'm going to play this audio. This is coming from the sheriff's office in upstate New York, there where it happened. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
A very sad case of some young adults that were looking for a friend's house and ended up at this man's house.
During a press conference, Washington County Sheriff Jeff Murphy said the shooting victim and her friends had been driving through Hebron on Patterson Hill Road in rural Washington County to get to a friend's house on Saturday night, but they instead mistakenly arrived at the wrong address.
While they were leaving the residence, once they determined that they were at the wrong house, a subject came out on his porch for whatever reason and fired 2 shots, one of which struck the vehicle that Kaylin was in.
20-year-old Kaylin Gillis of Schuylerville was fatally injured. The area has spotty cell phone service, and the group of 4, including Kaylin, had to drive to a nearby town to call for help. The sheriff named the homeowner, now charged with second-degree murder, as 65-year-old Kevin Monahan.
He was uncooperative with patrols on the scene. After approximately more than an hour of talking back and forth, he was taken into custody.
Murphy would not discuss the weapon used or if it was purchased legally, but he did say there was no threat against Monahan from the victim or her friends.
There was no reason for Mr. Monahan to feel threatened, especially as it appears the vehicles were leaving at the time.
There's now a GoFundMe page to help Kaylin's grieving family cover her funeral and other expenses. Sheriff Murphy says the Schuylerville High School graduate was well liked within her community.
She was a young girl that was taken.
But CNN won't talk about Kaylin because she's not a black. She's not black. She's not a black man. They'll talk continuously about Andrew Lester. And in this case, in the CNN case, right, Andrew Lester, the police deemed him to have reason, right? They let him go. They didn't even make the arrest. They didn't even take him into custody right away. And he was cooperative with the police. He had agreed to a search of his home. He had expressed remorse. He had expressed all kinds of things about how he felt bad, right? At least that's according to the probable cause statement drafted up by the police, that he expressed concern for the person he had shot multiple times, that he was cooperative, and that he agreed to a search. He even agreed to go talk to the cops without a lawyer present. And they let him go because they thought that he had some sort of, there was a threat, right? That they let him go at first. Now he's facing all kinds of charges, this 84-year-old man. And the reason why is because there's the headline from CNN, white man shoots black man. And that's all that matters to them. Poor Kaylin Gillis, the media doesn't care about her or her story because she wasn't black. On the other side, 309-451-9299. I've got a local story. Good morning, folks. Good morning. We'll be back here in just a little bit. I've got new information coming out soon in regards to this one story. It's a sad story. It's a missing person here in Bloomington. Bloomington police are looking for a missing woman. And there is new information to be coming on that, so you guys are going to want to stay tuned. The Bloomington Police Department, they were asking for help locating a missing woman. Now, the Bloomington Police have an update. Her name is Melissa Ostrom. I think I'm saying that correctly. And, yeah, she's 5'4". She had purple hair. She was known to frequent Bloomington Normal and nearby towns. So they were encouraging you to contact them with any information. We are expecting an update on that coming shortly. So. I would be on the lookout, folks, for some news breaking out of our newsroom and breaking on air later today in regards to Melissa Ostrom. I think I'm saying that correctly. There's going to be new information coming out. The Bloomington Police Department, they were asking help for locating this missing woman. The Bloomington police said that she was 39 years old, Melissa Ostrom. She was reported missing this past Monday. Now, she was 5'4", had purple hair. She was known to frequent Bloomington Normal and nearby towns. So anybody with information is encouraged to contact the Bloomington Police Department, 309-820-8888. We are going to have some updated information about that. Yes, I be on the lookout for that. Tom Davis going to be bringing you updates. I'm going to be bringing you updates here in the midday news. We are looking at that story. 309-451-9299. My heart and prayers go out to her family. I hope that she is found. We're going to be bringing you updates shortly on that. So I did want to talk this morning a lot about our relationship with our neighbors to the south. There's a growing relationship between Latin America and China. Let's take a listen here, and I want to talk about the United States being a global empire. Do you think that we should be a global empire? And is the United States a global empire? Here we go.
What are some of the big projects and push that we've seen from Beijing in LATAM?
We're seeing a big variety of them. Our story takes a look at a very remote province of Argentina, pronounced Jujuy, and we're seeing massive solar panels and mining projects to extract lithium. But we also travel to Sao Paulo, where it's more of an indirect. The energy giant State Grid owns the power distribution company that gives electricity to over 10 million Brazilians' homes. So we're seeing a huge infrastructure and investment on behalf of Beijing, both in the private and public level across South America. And we're seeing it not just at federal levels, but as the story and you described, we're seeing a big local push. Governors are traveling to Shanghai. Mayors are cutting deal. Battery plants are being built in suburbs. It's really widespread across the continent now.
So, is America a globalist empire? Are we a global empire? That's the question I've got here. Throw it in the comments. If you're watching on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, you can see me in the studio or give me a text. Is the United States a global empire? Should the United States be a global empire? Now, the United States is a country with a split personality disorder. Now, let me explain what I mean there. When it comes to the international space, specifically, after the fall of the Soviet Union, you've got some people here in the United States, some leaders trying to turn the United States into this dream of being a global empire. However, the question needs to be asked, are we properly situated to be a global empire? Now, we talk about the system of globalization and how it's made these American elites unbelievably wealthy. And here's an example. If you're the head of one of these businesses like Amazon, you can utilize slave labor in China. Pharmaceutical industry, Silicon Valley, you are making money hand over fist. And of course, meanwhile, we've got the Midwest, Illinois, Ohio, the Rust Belt, South. We are being completely gutted, sold out to China in spirit of becoming this global empire. Now, the question becomes, does this make sense? So in pursuit of this goal to become a globalist empire, we've gotten ourselves involved in adventurous wars. We've gotten ourselves involved in pushing this woke ideology throughout the world. We're trying to push transgenderism, wokeness, everywhere. We're trying to use universalist colonization, which is, in a sense, and it's kind of ironic and it's funny because the same people who complain really about Christian colonization are the same ones who are trying to convert the entire world to accept woke ideology. So we've got the globalists, but then we have people like Donald Trump who say the U.S. should be more of a regional power. When it comes to our ability to do things beyond our sphere of influence, so when it comes to things that are totally out of our control, totally out of our sphere of influence, what I think we need to be doing is to seek allies and partnerships in those areas, whether that's Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and we should be working with those coalitions in order to achieve the best outcome for the United States. However, our focus should be on our regional hemisphere. So I see this piece coming out of the Washington Times, and it's titled, Losing Latin America, the United States retreats while China's communist rulers advance. And I look at this and I say, okay, well, we need a little bit of both. Just because you say America first, it doesn't mean that you should be America only. You should pay attention to what's going on in your backyard. And the way I view it is that America's best policy is to have an America first policy, but not an America only standpoint, particularly when it comes to countries that are at our back door. So you look at our border, if we even have one at the south of us, right? Our southern border, we're seeing these massive surges of migration, illegal immigrants flooding over the border, caravans, drug organizations, cartels. We're seeing now Chinese nationals coming up through these same caravans. My point is, for all the times we get involved in border disputes, like what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, because that's what it is. It's a border dispute, a territorial dispute, really. For all the times that we do that, we should be shouldn't we be getting involved in things that directly happened in our own backyard? Because you know that the stuff happening at the southern border is directly affecting people in Arizona, Texas, Southern California, and they're having to deal with the southern surge every day. And then we have to deal with it here in the Midwest because there's competition now for low-wage workers because we decided to open up the floodgates. And so when it comes to countries, to those countries, the regional powers, I've been very critical of the U.S. foreign policy establishment now allowing our neighbors to get involved with BRICS. And we're going to let our direct neighbor, Mexico, get involved in this. The U.S. is in a very dangerous position right now. And in the pursuit of this globalist empire, we're really losing status because it's not going to happen. We're not going to be a globalist empire because we're bad at it. We're just bad. You know who's not bad at it? China. And we're trying to be globalists, and it's just not working. And we're losing our regional influence because we're so stretched. We're stretched out way too thin trying to pursue this globalist empire. But people don't care. There's too many people making too much money. And we need to return to this America First perspective. And it's vital that we do. Do want to play this here. Charlie Kirk sharing this on his Telegram, which is absolutely hilarious. This is a transgender man, a man posing as a woman. And this sounds very threatening. I don't know about you, but you tell me, is this a threat? And if you're watching on YouTube Live, you can see this man threatening people. A transgender person says that any woman who tries to stop him from entering a woman's bathroom will be making the last mistake she ever made. Let's
you
take
back
a
a
listen.
wild animal into a corner, they're going to become a dangerous animal. So if you want to die on that hill of yours of righteousness and moral majority, then you go right ahead. I dare you to try and stop me from going into a women's bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action and a call to arms to everybody within the United States that are scared, worried, have children that are transgender, lesbian, bi, or gay. This is a call to action. You need to arm up. Plain and simple. Go out, buy a gun. Learn how to use it efficiently, through and through. Because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself, and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community, as I'm going to do myself. Because there are lots of people like me who are not afraid to die.
Whoa.
I love my girlfriends to death, but I would rather die for them to secure their safety, freedom, and future than to live and not have anything done. So you go ahead. You protect your kids.
You protect your kids. Yeah, I will protect my kids against creeps like you, man. You are straight up threatening people, and these people have become militant. Trantifa, Antifa, BLM, these people have become militant, and we have to be careful, folks, because we're dealing with a population that has over 70% suicide rate. These transgender people with gender dysphoria are a danger to themselves and others. It doesn't mean that you espouse hate. It doesn't mean that you hate these people. It's just that you have to be careful. You have to be careful. These are the facts. These are the facts. Now, I do want to talk about this story. It's James O'Keefe. I'm going to share this with you. James O'Keefe, and this is on the topic of transgender. He goes up to Dylan Mulvaney, this trans TikTok Bud Light's Dylan Mulvaney, the spokesperson, right? He's a TikToker. He's a weird guy who's trying to live out days of girlhood. James O'Keefe with O'Keefe Media comes up to him and tries to get him to answer questions about his thoughts on women inmates being housed with male rapists claiming to be transgender. So if you're watching via YouTube, you can see James O'Keefe right now. He's going up to Dylan Mulvaney. He's trying to get him to answer questions about women inmates being testifying on being housed with male rapists claiming to be transgender. Here we go.
I'm James O'Keefe with OMG News outside the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. Dylan Mulvaney is inside the women's restroom right now, so I'm going to ask him for comment about our story regarding women being raped in prison by men claiming to be transgender. Here we go. Dylan, this is James O'Keefe, OMG. Women are being raped in a prison in Washington State by men claiming to be transgender. There's footage of them talking about the rape. Do you have a comment on the story here of the women being raped by the men claiming to be transgender? James O'Keefe, OMG News. What do you think about the women who are being raped by the men who are transgender?
He's running around the hotel right now, this beautiful hotel. And then he says,
what do you think about, what is your comment to the women who are being raped by men claiming to be transgender, Dylan? So we're here with Dylan here. Haven't had much Bud Light recently, but we're very interested in the women's prison. Dylan? Okay. She did go into the She went into the women's restroom.
What the hell are you doing? This is a women's bathroom.
Trying to show them the footage. No comment here at the Four Seasons Hotel.
No comment at the Four Seasons Hotel in Beverly Hills. Yep. I'll be honest. It's very paparazzi-like for O'Keefe to be doing this, but I will say it needs to be done. And it just goes to show you that people like Dylan Mulvaney, people who subscribe to the trans ideology, truly aren't they're not fully passionate about it. You can't be, right? And the reason why he didn't comment is because he knows it's wrong. He knows it's wrong. And if he truly believed in this trans ideology like he claims to, and if he didn't subscribe to it because it's a social contagion, if he truly believed it, he would have stopped and he would have commented, but he didn't. Because he doesn't believe in this nonsense. These people don't actually believe this stuff is good. They're doing it because it's popular, and they're doing it because they want clicks on TikTok. That's exactly why Dylan is doing what he's doing, because he's mentally deranged and he wants clicks on TikTok. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. I've got more stories for us here coming up next.
They meet today at 5 p.m.
Yes, today is 420, and real quick, Illinois quick hit. There was this one website, 420 for the marijuana enthusiasts. Marijuana is so gross. I'm sorry. It's really being incentivized here in the state of Illinois, and I don't know why. Probably because they want you docile, so that way you don't see what's going on in Springfield and the legislation that they're getting passed in the dead of night, right? They want you docile so you don't know what you're doing. But real quick, I did want to bring this up. There's a website that has ranked the best and worst cities on cannabis. And there are two, actually. One being the place that I grew up, kind of, placed in Joliet. Joliet is the third worst in the country to consume cannabis, which I kind of find surprising because I thought that Joliet would be well, maybe, hang on, let me double check this. The best. So I'm thinking people in Illinois, Joliet. So the worst, number one is the best, and we're the worst people to consume cannabis. So people aren't consuming cannabis, I think, here in the state of Illinois. I think that's what this is. Ranking the best is San Francisco. So that's consumer satisfaction, blah, blah, blah. Let me just share this with you. Hold on. Maybe you guys can help me. I'm thinking. So this is the 2023's best cities to get stoned. So this is the best city to get stoned. So we're up there. There's so many different cities, right? And they pulled from all kinds of cities. And Illinois, there's a few, Naperville, 71 places in Illinois where it's the best to get stoned. So sad. I don't know, guys. I'm so against this stuff. And actually, there's a story, Marion police, they got these guys who were getting in marijuana. It was like these 3 huge bags. I forget how many pounds. It was a ridiculous amount of marijuana. They were trying to drive it through, and you can't drive with that much marijuana. I mean, there's rules to this stuff, and the reason why there's rules is because, that we have to have some rules when it comes to driving under the influence, so that way people don't die. My freedoms end when you try to impose your nonsense on me, right? If you decide to drive high, that's where it imposes on my freedom to live, my pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you decide to get high and drive on the road, I think we have a big problem. And most of you are business owners, right? Some of you are business owners where you're having a hard time getting people to work for you. And I'll tell you, the number one reason why you're having a hard time getting people to work for you is because of marijuana. That's the number one thing I think affecting the generation right now, and why this generation sucks in working. Like they have zero work ethic. It's because marijuana makes you docile. It just does. Coming up, let's see what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about Mayor Chris Coos. He's getting green. He's got all kinds of green. So let's go here. I want to talk about Mayor Chris Coos. Guys, you can go to Cities 92.9, click on news. We've got all kinds of updates for you here. This story, Normal is going green. Going green. Earlier in the show, we talked with Janie Ives from Breakthrough Ideas, and we were talking about solar panels. And recently at the Olympia High School, there was an inverter that went bad, caused these solar panels to combust and catch on fire. So now there's all kinds of questions. Are we going to get rid of those solar panels? Are we going to, how is this being paid for? Or is our tax dollars going towards the school that it has to rebuild? Probably. And I just got a text here from Dave Swan, who you can catch on Chandler and Swan on Sundays. He says that, that whole gym was done within the last 5 years, and, the floor bleacher, all of it's new. And now we have to replace it again because these solar panels combusted, caused a fire. Then the roof membrane burnt up, melted. So then water got in. There's water damage. There's smoke inhalation or smoke damage. So yeah, that's one story that I'd covered today with Jeannie Ives, and she was telling me why she tweeted out what she did. Here's her tweet. Right. We'll scroll down. This is her tweet about the solar panels. She talked about this, and she said it's a completely dangerous situation for firefighters. So actually, the firefighters had to wait for a solar panel expert to come. And this comes, meanwhile, after this story about, Normal passing these $80,000 with FAR Associates to plan out Uptown 2.0 South. And this is south of the tracks, and it might eliminate natural gas as being a part of this. So Normal is looking at going all green for this new development, all electric. This would be the first municipality to try to pull something like this off. Somebody else tried to do this in California, Berkeley. Then the California Restaurant Association sued Berkeley over this. This is a great story by BLN News. I love it. It's illegal. Chris Coos wants Uptown 2.0 built without any natural gas pipelines. Normal thinks that this is sustainable. It's also illegal, which is true. Federal law. This is a federal law. So we're going to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. Mm, 309-451-9299. Hey folks, my name's Kat Peterson. Thanks so much for joining me. I do want to talk about Rochelle Walensky. Yeah, she finally is admitting that the vaccinated can get COVID. Finally. I don't know why it took her so long, but here she is admitting to Congress that people who get the vaccine can, in fact, get COVID-19 after receiving the clot shot. Let's take a listen to what she had to say to Congress.
In March 2021 on MSNBC, you stated that, quote, vaccinated people do not carry the virus. They don't get sick. Do you remember making that statement?
Yeah, I remember such statements. I don't know if I remember that one specifically.
Okay, was that statement correct?
At the time it was. It was a wild type virus that we had. It was even before the alpha variant. It was the initial wild type virus, and all the data at the time suggested that people who were vaccinated, even if they got sick, couldn't transmit the virus to someone else.
All right, is that statement still correct?
So we've had an evolution of science and an evolution of the virus. We have, since that wild type virus, had the alpha variant, the delta variant, now the Omicron variant, and numerous subvariants since. That statement is no longer correct with the Omicron subvariants we have right now.
Director Walensky.
Wow. There she is, the CDC Director, Rochelle Walensky. And this is the thing. She has previously stated that she learned of the effectiveness of the vaccines on CNN. So she was watching far left TV, and she said that she got all of her information from the media. So the CDC director is listening to CNN and MSNBC for her expertise on the effectiveness of the clot shot. Now, in this March 3rd appearance at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, Walensky was interviewed. And during that interview, she said that she learned about COVID vaccines and how they were effective from watching CNN. She also admitted health officials relied too heavily on the vaccine as a cure-all for all sorts of COVID. She said that the vaccine makers didn't warn the agency that vaccines would be less effective against potential variants. She also admitted that the science, far from being settled, is still gray instead of black and white. These people spread lies on top of lies on top of lies. She says that this had to deal with COVID variants, and that's why the vaccine doesn't work. They expect you to honestly believe that garbage. Got me a break. 309-451-9299. I got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to get into this story about Chris Coos receiving $6,000 from a Chicago, Washington, D.C. lobbyist who works on behalf of Big Green Energy. Normal is trying and has said, the city manager herself has said that they are looking possibly at eliminating natural gas down the road, and it's a possible regulation moving forward because the experts and the architects of Farr Associates might recommend this because they've created a master plan and they understand the town's values around sustainability. This green weenie garbage is dangerous and it's against the law. So I got that here on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Okay, let's address some of your comments here. 309-451-9299. You can text them in. Kat, how about you ask Bloomington Normal residents to text pictures of our failing roads, and let's see what you get. I think it will be an incredible amount of evidence that our city is failing. Yes, so our infrastructure is failing, but yet we all care about the green weenie crap. Why are we worried about eliminating natural gas from this development that we don't need? So we're more worried about that than we are the actual roads and the hard infrastructure, the infrastructure that needs to be taken care of. I mean, you can't drive out to Uptown 2.0 South without a road, right, that is effective. Trans is a mental disorder. They should not be able to buy guns as suggested by that trans. Yes, when a background check is done. Yes, so I've said this multiple times. I am totally not for red flag laws. I think that anybody with mental illness can get better. And once you take a gun away from somebody, that is a big deal. And I've gone on a rant. I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. When I interview gun violence victims, people who are just victims of somebody who wields a weapon against them, they feel so defenseless that is just permanently damaging to their soul, to their very being. There's a reason why the Second Amendment exists. It's because when you are in a situation where somebody wields a weapon against you, you are completely defenseless and it scars you for life. For life. And I know this because I've gone and I've interviewed people from that Normal mass shooting in the trailer park, and I went up to the man and he was terrified of me. Me, right? And not a very intimidating person. I'm usually a pretty nice gal. And he was just not willing to talk to me at all. I had the same situation happen with a friend of mine who was a victim of somebody getting into her car, holding her at gunpoint. And that was interesting because she totally shut down, blocked me, and didn't want to talk to me about it anymore. And it was a real sad situation. Second Amendment, it's the right to bear arms, the right to protect yourself against people who wield weapons against you. Let's look at the statistics here, okay? Where do mass shootings happen? Mass shootings happen in schools. Why? Because kids can't defend themselves, because kids can't wield weapons in the same way adults can. That's why I say the earlier the better. I think that the concealed carry law, right, or open carry, should extend to kids who are 16. And it's 15, right? As if they're properly trained with that weapon, yeah, they should be holding a weapon and have a weapon on their persons at all time. But this text is talking about transgenders and how they should not have weapons, and I've said this multiple times before. The reason why I say if we're going to do the red flag law thing, and I'm not for it, but if we are going to do it, and if we're going to do background checks, and if we're going to keep people with mental health issues from having guns, the population we should be targeting is this transgender community. This transgender, because they're so likely to be a danger to not only themselves but to others. People who are suicidal can turn homicidal very, very quickly. And when they're going through thoughts like that, they can turn homicidal. And we've seen this, right? Or they can commit crimes like what we saw James Blessant here in Bloomington Normal do. Allegedly, right, he sexually assaulted somebody under the age of 13. Sexual assault is penetration. This is a heinous crime, probably the worst thing. If you want my opinion, these people should be chemically castrated. These people should not live. I believe in the death penalty. I think that it fits for sex offenders because they don't get better. That's just proven. There's so much science to back that up, so much studies that have been done. Sex offenders do not get better. They keep offending. And we can't have that in society. We either lock them up, throw away the key, or the death penalty, right? But we saw that in James Blessant. He's a transgender man, trying to claim that he's a woman. And he sexually assaulted a young person, somebody under the age of 13. Obviously very troubled. I've heard from people in the community who James Blessant is. Very troubled man. And very quickly, when you have that much trouble mentally, you can lash out and commit heinous crimes like the Nashville shooter in Tennessee, like James Blessant, and this 5 counts of sexual assault. So that's why I agree with this texter. I think we should take the guns out of the hands of these Trantifa type people because they have become militant. I'm going to read a few of your texts here on the Morning Buzz. My name's Kat Peterson. Trans is a mental disorder. They should not be able to buy guns, as suggested by the transgender man who you just played the audio. Yes. When a background check is done, they should take the gun away from somebody who has gender dysphoria. Yes, I've said this multiple times. I am not for red flag laws. I don't think anybody should be denied a weapon. I've said this multiple times. When you become a victim of a crime or somebody wields a weapon against you, that is a permanent, lasting impact on your soul. There's a reason why it is enshrined in our Constitution. It is a God-given right. God gives us this natural ability this natural instinct to wield a weapon and to have weapons on us because when you are in a situation where somebody uses a weapon against you, that is the most terrifying and long-lasting, permanent suffering that you could go through. You should always have a weapon on you. In my opinion, that is just what needs to happen, is that you should always have a weapon on you. I'm not for red flag laws. I'm not for background checks. I think everybody should have open carry, maybe even as young as 16. There, I said it. Right? I am so far, not even far right. I am so lenient on what kind of people should have. If we're all packing, if we all have guns on us, then nobody shoots each other. Okay, that's just the bottom line. Because we all know that we're all packing. But this texter has a point. If we're going to do red flag laws and if we're going to do background checks, we should look at the numbers, look at the statistics. How likely is it that a transgender person somebody with gender dysphoria is going to lash out, be homicidal, commit heinous crimes like sexual assault. Allegedly, we have James Blesson committing sexual assault, has 5 different counts of sexual assault against a child, somebody under the age of 13. We have a case like that here in Bloomington. He's identifying as a woman, clearly very troubled. I've heard from people in the community that James Blesson was and is a very troubled man. The likelihood that people with gender dysphoria lash out and commit heinous crimes, wield a weapon against somebody, or wield a weapon even against themselves, the suicide rate is insane. I've said that multiple times. We should be looking at those statistics and passing legislation that corresponds with those statistics if we're going to do red flag laws. I've said that multiple times. 309-451-9299. You can see me live in the studio on Facebook Live or on YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe, folks. That is so important. If you don't like and subscribe, I'm going to be mad. No, I'll forgive you. But here's a story. Chris Coos. He just got $6,000 from a Washington, D.C., Chicago lobbyist who works on behalf of big green energy companies. So the founder of Recall Strategies, this is Jonathan Callaway, and Recall Strategies is a lobbying firm, and I have a list of their clients, one of them being Enel North America. Enel North America is a green energy company, a big one. And Jonathan Callaway, 6 days after the municipal election on April 4th, contributed the maximum amount of campaign donations under Illinois law to Mayor Chris Coos. The maximum under Illinois law to an individual is $6,000. So he got $6,000 from Jonathan Callaway. It's important to note here that Jonathan Callaway also contributed the max to his employee, Andy Byers, who was replaced on the Planning Commission at the last council meeting because he was recently elected to the Normal Town Council. Jonathan Callaway also contributed the max to recently re-elected Kathleen Lorenz. I have placed several phone calls, several emails to the attorney representing Recall Strategies, and they refuse to answer if Recall Strategies and or their clients would benefit from Byers being elected trustee in Normal. Byers works for the same lobbying firm that represents big green energy companies, Recall Strategies. So far, Jonathan Callaway has invested in our council members and in our mayor a total of $18,000. Why does he care so much about the town of Normal? Could it be that the town of Normal is doing something that no other municipality has really done? And there's a reason why no other municipality has really pulled something like this off, because I don't think it's really all that legal, considering that something like this was done in California, something of this nature, where they eliminate natural gas from being a part of Uptown 2.0 South. This is south of the tracks. This is a new development. They agreed. They passed spending of $80,000 with Farr Associates, Doug Farr, who is planning out this Uptown 2.0. On tape, we have Pamela Reese. She's the city manager. She said eliminating natural gas is a possible regulation moving forward because the experts and the architects recommend it. So, quote, this is from Pam Reese during a March council meeting. She says, the team working on this plan, Uptown South, understands the town's values surrounding sustainability. The master plan, which is projected to look out 8 years or so, is projecting what might make sense in the next 8 years. So what makes sense in the next 8 years to these people, right? It doesn't make sense to you and I, is that we eliminate natural gas. This is very political. It's not sustainability. It's climate change. It's activism. And it's wrong. And we have proof in the pudding here, folks, that I don't think that this could be pulled off legally where they can pass an ordinance banning natural gas from being installed in this new development. The town is developing Uptown South with a potential goal of going all green. This would mean no natural gas would be installed in Uptown South and it would be all electric. So BLN News, Diane Benjamin, she pointed out this case, and this is a case that we've got to look at going forward. California Restaurant Association sued actually Berkeley, California, the city, over an ordinance making natural gas pipelines illegal to install in one building. So you can read the case at cities99.com. Bloomberg has it up. It goes into detail about what the judge said. So the judge in this case said that by preventing such appliances from using natural gas, the new Berkeley building code doesn't exactly do that. It doesn't prevent certain appliances going up. But what this city tried to do was ban natural gas from being hooked up to these appliances, and under a specific law. This law is called it's called energy something, where we've got, here it is. Okay, Energy Policy and Conservation Act, because it indirectly regulates appliances that use natural gas. So the court found it violated this federal law. So it'll be interesting to see what Normal does going forward. If there is an ordinance, folks, the town of Normal, there's precedent here where you could sue the town of Normal for banning natural gas. There's precedent where you violate a federal law. It's called the Energy Policy and Conservation Act. Okay, want to shift gears here. One story coming out here about an LGBT activist. His name is Eric McDermott, and he taught and coached at Fairmont Junior High School. This is in Idaho. He's an Idaho high school teacher, LGBT activist, and he was arrested on charges of raping a 16-year-old boy. This is a tough story, folks, but the reason why these stories are so frequent and we see these activists charged with such heinous crimes is because activism has to stay at the door when you are a teacher. So your activism as a teacher has to be left at the door. Kids gravitate. And these pedophiles, these predators, they know that kids gravitate to people who are outspoken and loud and they're passionate about a certain belief because it gives them the impression of, you know what you're talking about. At that age, 16, 17, 15, 12, this teenage age, kids are starving for information. They're starving for understanding of the world, for an understanding of the world. It's only natural. So that's why you see even priests, right? They're passionate about their beliefs. They're passionate about a religion. You see cult leaders, right? They're passionate and they get these people, they groom these people on behalf of their with their activism, because kids are drawn to that. Kids are drawn to the activism because they're starving for information. And when you speak passionately about something, they're going to gravitate towards you. Pedophiles and predators know this. It's grooming. So the next time you see a rainbow flag in your teacher's classroom, remember this story about Eric McDermott and how he contacted a former student via this dating hookup app in 2020. He was sharing several nude photos of himself, and he took the teen back to his home and allegedly sexually assaulted him. The now former teacher is set to appear in court on April 27th and is being held on $1 million bail. I'm not saying all activists are sexual predators. However, I am saying the likelihood of them being a predator increases because this is a grooming tactic. This is a grooming tactic. So the next time you see a rainbow flag in one of your teacher's classrooms, remember this story and remember that there is a likelihood that that teacher is a predator because it's a tactic used by pedophiles and predators. Activism. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. I love this. Levi, you're totally wrong about this. What data, man, proves this? There is no data that proves that it keeps you from dying in the hospital. And show me long-term studies about this. This is not true. Not true at all. But, however, there have been studies about how ivermectin prevents you from getting COVID-19. And those studies have been buried. They've been debunked by all of these people, and that's just not true. Ivermectin saved my family from getting COVID or from dying from COVID-19. And this is just categorically wrong. I'm not anti-vax. I do believe that some vaccines might actually help people and help them prevent diseases. This is not a vaccine. This is gene therapy that's dangerous, and it's a clot shot. So we'll be back here in just a little bit. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me here. And folks, be sure to like and subscribe. Like our page on Facebook, like and subscribe on YouTube. And you can watch me live in the studio, go through all of our stories and all of the show prep that I've got for you. Now, I did want to talk about this actress, Patty LaPoon, I think is her name. I don't know. LaPon is Patty LaPon. And she says that you can't tell the difference between Christian right and the Taliban. And here's the problem, folks. This is the problem. This is why everybody's so divided. This is why People are so on edge. This is the actress saying that Christians are essentially the same as the Taliban. Here we go.
I'm going to get in trouble. But I have said this before, and it's been in print. I don't know what the difference between our Christian right and the Taliban is. I have no idea what the difference is.
What? You're not the only person who's said that.
I just don't know what the difference is. Yeah. What's happening in this country right now in the name of religion is so dangerous.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? You are causing a divide. You're disgusting. Christians have been bullied by secular extremists like Patty LaPone for way too long. No more. And folks, it's not racist to acknowledge that black people have a crime problem. Let's look at Chicago, okay? Let's look at that Chicago couple. They were just walking around and they were trying to find something to eat in downtown Chicago. And they were jumped by multiple black men and women. It's not racist to point out that there's a problem. Fixing that problem would do far more to help the black community than the $100 billion of anti-racism lectures that they tried to give you in school. So let's talk about this story before I've got to cut to break here. I've got this story coming out about this 12-gauge shotgun. Okay, so quote from the boyfriend of Kaylin Gillis. I tried to step on the gas as fast as I could. The boyfriend of Kaylin Gillis describes the panic as this gunman fired on them with a 12-gauge shotgun after accidentally pulling into his driveway. So this is a sad story, very sad. They pulled into the wrong driveway in upstate New York. It's rural upstate, not a lot of cell phone service, so they had to drive around looking for help because they couldn't connect with the police after Kaylin was fatally shot. 12-gauge homeowner. So sad. This is the story. I'm going to play it here for us. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this story coming out of the sheriff's office. Here we go.
A very sad case of some young adults that were looking for a friend's house and ended up at this man's house.
During a press conference, Washington County Sheriff Jeff Murphy said the shooting victim and her friends had been driving through Hebron on Patterson Hill Road in rural Washington County to get to a friend's house on Saturday night, but they instead mistakenly arrived at the wrong address.
While they were leaving the residence, once they determined that they were at the wrong house, a subject came out on his porch for whatever reason and fired 2 shots, one of which struck the vehicle that Kaylin was in.
20-year-old Kaylin Gillis of Schuylerville was fatally injured. The area has spotty cell phone service, and the group of 4, including Kaylin, had to drive to a nearby town to call for help. The sheriff named the homeowner.
So that's Kevin. He is the perpetrator there, and the reason why I bring this up today is because it kind of is similar to this case with this black teenager going up to the house of Andrew Lester, an 84-year-old man, and he's pulling on the exterior door. He was at the wrong house. He was supposed to go to a different house, allegedly, and Andrew Lester pulls out his gun. He's in bed, wakes up, opens the interior door. Within seconds, he shoots this black man, black young teenager. And this has dominated mainstream news. This story has dominated mainstream news. You've seen it. And I don't know why we aren't talking about Kaylin. Actually, I do know why. It's because it doesn't fit the race narrative. They're trying to divide you, and they're trying to push a racial narrative, and that's why they don't talk about stories like Kaylin Gillis. Folks, I've got to go. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. I so do appreciate you listening, and be sure to visit our advertisers, The Door Doctor, McLean County Asphalt, John's in Lexington. We've also got all kinds of them, right? Jimmy John. We've got all kinds of advertisers. Visit our advertisers, support them, tell them that you listen to Cities 92.9. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you. Glenn Beck is up after me. Hey, be sure to like and subscribe. You guys better do that. If you guys don't do that, I'm going to be very upset. Like and subscribe if you're watching right now, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye-bye.